Well. What do we have here? Some surprising news, and probably more exciting to others, more than probably usually would be for any other circumstance. Kathleen Kennedy stepping down from Lucasfilm. At least that's what the word from the grapevine is, but it seems more serious now than it was in the past handful of years when that rumor was circulating. Which this year her contract will be up, so I guess it seems more logical. It's actually serious. Pretty sure by the end of the year, she'll be legitimately stepping down. But before I really get into it, please do me a huge favor and like this video. Leave a comment below. Let me know what you guys think of this news. And follow me in the links in the description below. I made my opinions heard from a couple of videos I made regarding Star Wars, like a video I made about how I would fix the sequel trilogy, or what's going on with like the Acolyte, or with Leslie Headland, various things that I posted on the channel, which you guys been checking out, and I appreciate you immensely about that. But here, where it's kind of like, I think Acolyte was the nail in the coffin for a lot of people who has been into this situation for a good period, especially Kennedy. But from what I heard, Headland kind of like bowed out from, at least taking a break from doing any show running for a while. It's like you kind of brought that on yourself, personally, how I feel, because a lot of these people that we got, behind the scenes, by and large, don't appreciate the lore of Star Wars the way it should be, or at the very least can't seem to navigate or plan out what they want. It seems, especially, I think The Last Jedi was the catalyst to what led to here. Sure, we had some successes here and there, sure. And before we do any more rah-rahs with her leaving Lucasfilm, Kathleen Kennedy, to be fair, has made some successes. Anything that we actually legit liked, she was part of that too. But at the same time, you're only good as your last project. And it's been a while since we had like a good, successful Star Wars project, especially a movie. Now, you still got the Mandalorian Grogu film and the Andor season 2, which the trailer just dropped. So I imagine, those after those two, she'll be like leaving. And imagine Andor is probably a little bit more successful. People more, believe that's more a guaranteed success, while Mandalorian Grogu is pretty much up in the air on how well that will turn out, because the Mandalorian season 3 ended on a big whimper. Not as bad as like the Acolyte, but still. But Kathleen Kennedy, she probably should have saw the writings on the wall at least 5 years ago. And I hate to crap on her, and I don't think, depending on who you ask about the level of crap she should get. But other than, Bob Iger is her boss. So the buck technically stops with him, but she, get 50, we got like Bob Chapek too. So all those three get, shared blame. But she signed off on a lot of stuff. So that's why she gets the brunt of this, of the agitation from Star Wars fans. because there was a lot of decisions she's been making in the past several years that by and large did not make any sense. And now, while we are like, for the most part, glad that now we can get probably like a new regime coming in, can't seem to be totally excited because it all depends on who they get. Because like with most Marvel properties, are just bringing in some director just to be the face and say like, look at this person of color, this woman, and like, oh, like, she's excited to be here and do the typical PR rhetoric. Like, I'm excited to be a part of Star Wars. We're going to bring, Star Wars to a new era, and we've got all these plans and all the blah, 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 where they just going to be allowing other producers and other, executive producers to just, futz with it, and it's like nothing will change. That is my biggest concern. Are they actually going to make some legitimate changes, or hopefully that this new person will come in and it's like, look, y'all not going to steamroll me. Look, you brought me in to fix this, so that's what I'm going to do. We're going to, have a plan in place. We're going to actually bring in some stuff from the Legends and these, and the stuff from the comics, and actually incorporate all that stuff. We're not going to overdo it with the amount of projects and start announcing stuff that, and get ahead of ourselves and by announcing this, that, and the third. No, because I think that's what James Gunn, his mindset has been, where it's like, I'm not going to announcing everything under the blue moon. We're going to start doing stuff one thing at a time. And that's what, and we have a plan in place. We're going to take it one step at a time so we can produce the best results possible. And hiring actors who's the good fit for the job. And hopefully, and I think this partially, at least in my opinion, partially why Kennedy has been like slipping a lot, because they brought in a lot of these agenda driven, don't want to say hippy dippy, but a lot of these I'm blanking on the name, but for lack of a better word, these hippy dippy people that, I hesitate to use a DEI thing, but you get what I'm driving at, where these like people with this certain agendas trying to push certain thing, like, oh, the Force is female, and it's like trying to lean into something that doesn't need to be leaned in to try to force some kind of progressiveness into Star Wars, where it's like it doesn't really fit into the scope of the wide array of this franchise. I'm not saying like you can't have certain stories talking about certain issues, but usually it has to be at least vague enough so it wouldn't seem so hyper specific. Whereas like, like war in general, because it's Star Wars, so a lot of it is about war. But Lucas, when he started this, didn't start it to hyper focus on the Vietnam War for this particular person, all the atrocities made for this particular instance, and date itself. This is something that we can, no matter the time, no matter what time period you're in, whereas like back in the 70s or the early 2000s or in 2025 or even 2050, we can all understand about the atrocities of war and what it can do to you, and that, everybody around the world, no matter the demographic, can all understand. But if you make it hyper specific, then it's just like, you're seemingly preaching and like finger waving, all that stuff. And it's just like, your core audience and the rest will come. So the next person come in shouldn't be going around on press tours wearing shirts like Force is female, because that's cringe. Let's be real. It was a very cringe thing that she did, because she was hopping on some type of bandwagon, because that was the hot thing at that time, where women feeling, less than, or not getting certain agencies, or getting certain roles, or getting certain this or that and a third, and they kind of like overdid it or overcompensating, whereas kind of hurting the story, because the story had to, it seems so pushed to the side. And we saw that with the Acolyte, and that was the nail in the coffin, because it's like, what are we even talking about here? So yeah, and like I said, like, I hope that a new person comes in, don't get steamrolled by all these like executive producers and everything like that. No, say like, no, I'm, whether it's a man or a woman, doesn't matter. Coming in there saying like, no, I like this franchise. Like I mentioned before, they don't need to know every deep lore underneath the freaking blue moon, but they need to have reverence and respect for this franchise, at least enough to know that, okay, I'm going to hire people who actually have some, legit credibility, not just with, with just documentaries, or, did some TV show. Well, depending on how you, about to say like, not just TV shows. I'm about to say that. No, scratch that. I'm not just going to have people who haven't worked on big budget projects before. I'm going to have, people who, because like the, people who's doing Andor right now worked on quite a few films and quite a few TV shows. So they know how to formulate a story that fit in the context of the medium they're trying to give out to us in that platform, and know how much story they need to tell, where it doesn't feel like any filler episodes, is tight, and it fits nice and neat in this overall structure of the story. They don't feel like they need to like completely take over, but acknowledge like, I'm a part of this overall IP that was started by George Lucas, who, this is his baby, not mine. I'm just adding a brick to the foundation and not trying to erode everything. And like I said, like, you gotta have a plan. Don't overdo it. I'm thinking like, sure, if you have some movies in play talking about back into the old Republic, or even further beyond that, or you want to tell like a Darth Bane story or a Palpatine story, okay, do you want to make it a movie, or do you want to make it a TV show? Okay, it's only enough to the story is only enough big enough to fit in like a 2-hour span, make it a movie. If it's quite a bit longer than that, probably fits in the narrative of a TV show. Or probably shorter than that, probably fits in the narrative of a TV show. It all depends. But if you're making a movie, which has been a minute, because I think like the Rey movie and the Mandalorian Grogu movie is gonna be the first Star. Well, Mandalorian Grogu is definitely coming. Don't know about Rey movie yet, but with the Mandalorian Grogu, will be the first Star Wars movie we had in a long while, since like 6 years since the Rise of Skywalker. So if you're making these movies, like I said, have a plan of, where in the Star Wars galaxy that you want to tell the story in. And if you're doing like a trilogy or just a one-off movie, between these films, make it 2 to 3 years. Don't inundate us every year with this stuff, because like with Marvel, you will end up spreading your crew so thin it will hamper the quality of what we're looking at. We don't want a half done CGI crap that we saw in Ant-Man Quantumania. You don't want that. And regarding the TV shows, they can afford to do one show a year. So that way, we can enjoy Star Wars without being pummeled by Star Wars. Because we all love this franchise. By and large, we all love this franchise. But you want this new person to come in and with a goal. Okay? Yeah, and you don't need to start announcing everything under the blue moon. And stop activists. That was the word I was looking for. Stop hiring activists. Actually get some legit writers who worked on projects for a long while, with like some veterans here who worked on stuff. Not your activist friends. Hire people who worked on TV shows or movies for quite a bit of time. Sure, not saying like you can't bring in new blood that's like fresh out of college or something like that, but they shouldn't be shoved right into these, writers' rooms. They should start from the bottom up, and then once things get successful and certain material they brought in, they pretty much interns and then work their way up, so they know how things go, so they don't feel overwhelmed, or, so they can, get the training wheels part done until they eventually learn how to ride on their own, instead of just pushing them into certain spaces that they not ready for. Because let's be real, it's like, quite a few of these shows get certain people into these writer rooms that probably don't need to be in there. May not necessarily just Star Wars, but in most studios in Hollywood, as we are seeing in the past handful of years. So, yeah, man. The only benefit I see on the new person coming in is the fact that there is a glimmer of grace that the masses will bestow upon that person, where it's like, okay, this new regime change will give you a couple of projects, so that way we can see what you're working with. And when you're on these press tours, don't allow certain interviewers go like, is this the gayest Star Wars ever? Is this the gayest Star Wars ever? Like, don't fall for that crap. Just like, Star Wars is made for all. If you're gay, straight, whatever, you will enjoy this. We got mix some anthology series. That would be great, because the Tales of the Jedi, Star Wars Visions, they're pretty good too. And this was something Star Wars really excelled at, is telling truncated stories in 15 minutes, and they're so solid. And somehow they, every once in a while, when you expand that time frame into 40 minutes, they kind of come undone depending on who the showrunner or the writers are. It's kind of weird. But if you get these people on these press tours, don't be like Rachel Zegler and put your foot in your mouth. Show that you got respect for this franchise and respect for George Lucas's baby, and say like, here's what I'm adding to this overall narrative. Here's the, we're glad to have all people to come enjoy this, irregardless of your background. We got some solid actors. We're not going to sit there and try to shove every diverse person underneath the blue moon just to get, progressive points from the, certain people in California. It's like, no, we got like a decent amount of people here, whereas they're a white straight male or a queer person here or a Native American person here. It's just like, you know, we hire the best people, not because of some mandated DEI program, just so we look like we're being inclusive. Just do it organically if the person is good at the role. And make sure they also do not shoot themselves in the foot when on these red carpets, like Rachel Zegler, or even Amanda Stenberg, and making stupid diss tracks and stuff like that, and all this cringe-worthy crap. Just be normal. You know, you're part of this massive project. Sure, are there still gonna be some idiots out there spewing stupid rhetoric? Just dip and dodge that stuff. Don't let that. You don't need to address it. Just you know, let your work speak for itself. Let the acting speak for itself. If you're a good actor, if you're a good writer, if you're a good showrunner, if you're a good director, good cinematographer, good musical score choreographer, sound engineer, if everybody's doing their part, doing it right, then the work will speak for itself, and all those minute naysayers will come correct. It's like they got nothing to say at that point. But don't feed them ammo by, you know, spouting stupid stuff like the Force is female. It's like the Force is already, you know, you don't need to say that. You know, we got cool female characters in Star Wars. We always had them. So it's kind of like a hat on a hat at this point. And it's like, what are you trying to prove here? It's like, we got Padme, you know, Princess Leia, Ahsoka, Mothma, you know, Asajj Ventress. We got a lot here. So just concentrate on making good stories. Put story first. And I want the new person replacing Kathleen Kennedy to hopefully keep that in mind and not let these execs steamroll them to just continue on with the same BS that we've been inundated with in the past handful of years. Because that's, you know, then that's when Star Wars is really kaput. Because I really love this franchise. It's one of my favorite franchises of all time. And I hate seeing it like this, where we get, you know, stuff just getting thrown in the wall and hoping something sticks. And it's like, that's not a plan. That's you just messing up in the kitchen. It's like, know the recipe. Going step by step. Let it take its time. And out pops a nice cake. Right now it's between the cooks in the kitchen, and they need to start like allowing directors some level of creative license. Don't let them completely take over. Nobody should be taking over. There should be some equal amount of symbiosis between the business heads and the creative side. Because there's a creative business. It's not solely creative stuff, and it's not solely business stuff. We used to know this. And we need to bring it back to some, you know, symbiosis between the business side and the creative side, and understand their respective roles. But they should harmoniously agree that we have respect for this IP. We're not gonna, you know, like Jon Favreau refused them to spoil the whole Grogu stuff during the first season of The Mandalorian before the pilot. It's like, no, do not put the toys out, because that will spoil what we got going on. That is a smart mindset. They need to allow certain the creative people to say, like, no, business people, don't get ahead of yourself. Wait a little while before you start releasing these toys, so the people watching the show can enjoy and be surprised. Because can you imagine, you know, how we would have feel about Grogu if that toy would have came out long before the pilot was airing? Completely spoiled the whole entire thing, and it will kind of ruin, you know, our enjoyment and it probably would have been bad. Or the flip side of that, business people can like tell certain creative people or showrunners like, hey, the public needs you to stay in this lane. Don't veer off to try to turn this into your one of those independent documentaries or anything like that crap. No, stay in the Star Wars lane. You still got room to maneuver, but this is like 100 degree box. Like I'm just spitballing the degrees here. It's like a 4x4 100 degree box. You got like room to maneuver, but you're still within this space. Okay. You got room to maneuver, but don't go like try to go outside of the box area, because that's the boundary. That's your creative boundary. If you go outside of that, then it's not Star Wars anymore. It's completely something else. And that's what was going on with the Acolyte. It went off outside the boundary into completely something off-world. So they keep each other they should be able to keep each other in check. At least that's how I view it. So while I'm for lack of better words, like, I'm kind of glad that Kathleen Kennedy is stepping down, because despite, sure, she probably had some highlights in her day, but in recent years, and it's not just, it's only been 1 year, it's only been 2 years. No, she, within the past, since Rise of Skywalker, arguably since Last Jedi, she got more misses than hits. And it's too much to allow it to continue, because the overall brand is suffering at this point. And she's already saying she's been planning on retiring soon anyway. But man, you should have done that a long time ago, because the overall brand is pretty much at its low point at this point. And the buck partially stops with you. Hate to say it, you're to blame. And because you sign up on a lot of this stuff, and you forgot the lessons because you were supposed to have been taught underneath George Lucas. He chosen you to be his successor, and you kind of fumbled the ball in the past handful of years. You lost a lot of people's trust, and you can't blame them to feel the way they feel. And sure, there was some, like I said, a few idiots out there who's being a little bit misogynist, but there's only a minute of people. This isn't like the overall wide scope of people who have legitimate complaints on the overall conduct that you've been delivering when it comes to this work, and who you hired to do show running and writing and all this other stuff. Somebody come in and do a complete overhaul on, like, okay, who we got all hired? Let me see their resumes. Let me know that, like, go through all this stuff. I was like, okay, I see you got activists. You've been on Twitter talking about, like, very super political. I mean, it's okay that you have your own political beliefs, but the fact that you bringing it into the workspace and not leaving it at the door, you gotta go. We cannot have this stuff spewing into the work unless there's some creative reason regarding it. If it's like too hyper specific about certain presidents, or like certain business guys who was very horrible to certain women, back in the day, it's like, okay, none of that mess. Okay, you brought out, because Star Wars, like any franchise, like Marvel or DC or Lord of the Rings, they're supposed to, or Harry Potter, they're supposed to be escapism from real life stuff, where it's like we get to spend an hour to 3 just immersing ourselves in a world, so that way we can just separate ourselves from that stuff for a little while, just but if you, and that's what this new person needs to do, where it's like, all right, you bunch of activists and all these people who was hired by Kathleen Kennedy because you're friends with her and stuff. If your credentials is lacking, you're getting downgraded, or you're getting rid of all completely, and then bringing it back in some veteran writers, competent writers who knows how to make good quality work, like the people who from like old Pixar, like who wrote for like Toy Story and like the Disney's Hercules or something like that, where it's like they know how to make good quality writing, competent writing, and bring prioritize story first before anything else. And that's the person who need to swing their thing around. It's like, this is how it's going to be. You don't like it? There's the door. I'm not holding you hostage. You can go. Be well. Hopefully you find like a new job. But that's how it's going to be. And that person needs to do that. It might suck. It might seem mean, but like I said, it's still a creative business. And part of the business is making tough calls like that. You're not there to be your friends. I mean, sure, you could be, working on a lot. You're going to eventually have some camaraderie. But at the end of the day, it's a business. And if you're not following certain guidelines, or you're undermining certain people in charge, or you're bringing in BS, politics or personal gripes into the work that's hurting the overall brand, then you have got to go. We had enough of this BS for far too long. And that's what that person needs to do. Hopefully. And hopefully, it's nobody that Kathleen Kennedy knows or works with her too closely before. They got to bring in somebody fresh. And that person, hopefully, doesn't get, bullied into just continuing on with the same mess. I mean, that's how I view it. They need to I said what I said. It's like, not get bullied, have an overall plan, and, prioritize quality over quantity. Because Marvel had to learn that hard lesson. Now Lucasfilm has to learn that lesson too. So hopefully in the next, maybe not this year, but in the next 2 to 3 years, we'll start seeing some legit changes in the writing with whatever Star Wars project that might come out next. Hopefully, maybe like the Rey movie might have some legitimate changes before it comes out, thanks to this regime change. So now we can actually, because the characters from the sequel trilogy wasn't overall the problem. It's the writing behind them that kind of made them look terrible. And I, think like Rey is like a cool character, but if you peel back the layers, she is like a Mary Sue, and you got to give this character some substance. And it isn't the fault of Daisy Ridley. And it's like, didn't have a plan at that time because he keeps swapping out directors, and it's like, they gotta been, even if you did have to swap out directors, there still had to have been like a blueprint left by J.J. Abrams. Like, look, I gotta step away. Rian Johnson, here's my overall thing. Please continue on for me, so it doesn't feel so out of whack in between that space. So that way, it wouldn't spiral into this mess that we got now. Anyway, this is my quick thoughts on this whole entire thing. It's like, hopefully people will give this new person a chance, but at the same time, hopefully these whoever they bring in don't get bullied into just doing the same mess as before. Because if that happens, Star Wars will go down completely in flames. It's running on steam at this point. It's probably long since running on steam, but just like with the Superman film, if this does not work out, then this is dead. completely, and nobody will. You're already getting a good large majority of people turning away from Star Wars. Some good Star Wars fans, not toxic ones, but just legit good Star Wars fans that are completely turned away from the overall writing quality and hiring choices that's been made. Now, what few fans are left, they're going to completely be gone, and all that's left is just like probably just activists. And then it's not even Star Wars anymore. It's something completely different. You'll completely ruin what George Lucas had created in its totality. So this is your last chance. If you bring in this new person, but this is your last chance, and hopefully their ideas is smart, because you got legends, you got all these novelizations, you got all these comic books that you can mine from. Utilize them. Don't try to go off the reservation here. You got so much you can do, and have them focus. That's another thing. I like the Kenobi series, that wasn't focused. You got too many. It's supposed to be about Vader and Kenobi, but you got all these other extra characters that were too busy like getting their own little story plot beats and stuff that nobody really cared about. Because let's be honest, you're trying to set up none of these backdoor pilot bullcrap. That's what the problem with like the Boba Fett show, because it's just nobody asked for that first and foremost. But you bring them in to a Mandalorian show as like a backdoor pilot into another thing. You did the same thing with Ahsoka, so you can backdoor pilot into her own thing instead of just having a plan in the first place. And if it's a story about Kenobi, let it be about Kenobi. Little Leia doesn't factor into this thing. It's not about her. You talking about Boba Fett? Mando doesn't need to be brought into this mess. Have it a focused story about a character you're trying to talk about. Nobody needs to intrude on the other. But anyway, I'm pretty much ranting at this point. But you can see the passion I have about this, because I don't want Star Wars to go out in not even like a blaze of glory, it's a blaze of disaster. It's just like, golly, they need like some major overhaul. That person needs to come in and it's like start like cleaning house. Hate to say it, but that new person needs to start cleaning house from all this, certain activists that's involved. Anybody closely tied with Leslie Helen or Kathleen Kennedy, they need to go, because they'll just try to, undermine or incept their little stuff here and there. It's like, or setting little gay agendas and, all this other stuff. They trying to like undermine. I was like, no, stop. We wise to your act. They need to cut that mess out, because if you don't, you're gone. Sorry. It might seem harsh, but you blew it. You played yourself. Anyway, that is just my overall thoughts. I got another video that I wanted to talk about, but please let me know in the comments below what you guys think of, Kathleen Kennedy finally leaving. And I will see you all soon. Peace.